Welcome back to I Did This Instead of Killing Myself, everyone, a stand-up comedy podcast based in Greenville, South Carolina. My name's David Bakker. It is the week of June 20th, 2022. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Happy Juneteenth. It is, it's going to be a good week. It's going to be a great week. I hope you got a chance to spend time with your dads. My dad and grandpa are in Michigan, so happy Father's Day. Sorry I couldn't see you guys. I'll be back soon. And we have a jam-packed week of comedy. I feel tired today. I don't know what to riff on. I'm not going to riff on anything, I don't think. I don't even know if you guys like me riffing on stuff. I don't hear any complaints, but I also don't hear anything great necessarily. The one thought that I had, and this is kind of like a negative a little bit, but it's a news update with one of our recent podcast guests, and I want to say our thoughts are with him, but David Koechner, he just got another DUI, and he was on episode 50, and I love that he did it. But I was really sad to see that, but I think he's going to bounce back. I don't know. I had this thought that maybe doing this podcast was just the final nail in the coffin of his mental health, and it just sent him over the edge. I don't know. I worry about him. My buddy Kelby sent me the police footage of the incident, and I don't know, man. DUIs suck. I've never gotten one, but I know a lot of people have their struggles with alcohol. So my thoughts are with David Koechner. I really appreciate him doing the show, but again, maybe it kind of took a toll. Maybe that was what pushed him over the edge. Doing this, did this instead of killing myself podcast. No, he'll be fine. He'll bounce back. Go get him, David Koechner. It's all right. But speaking of fathers and Tommy doesn't have a drinking problem. My guest today, I'm very excited. He is a dad. Tommy Donovan. Tommy is one of my original friends in Greenville comedy. We all started comedy around the same time in 2020. And Tommy is very prolific, multi-talented. He is a father of 4. He's a home inspector. It's his day job. He also is the host of the Home Pros radio show. And in his former life, he was the former mascot of the USC Gamecocks, Cocky. He also was Sir Purr of the Carolina Panthers. In fact, if you want to YouTube a video of Sir Purr jumping on the football, this is on YouTube. I can link it too. He actually jumped on the football after a touchback and got yelled at by the refs. That was Tommy in the costume. So that's Tommy Donovan. He's a riot, man. He's a ton of fun. He's like, I look up to him because he has this very stable domestic life, but still does comedy. So it proves that you can still have fun, be a dad, be a responsible parent, and still have a blast and have all of these great outlets. And he's funny. So, one of the things he does on TikTok that I'll encourage you to follow him on TikTok is news you may have missed. So I'm going to go ahead and play a clip. Tommy does this segment where he plays a newscaster, basically, doing a spoof of the news. A little bit of Norm Macdonald here. So here it is, an example of news you may have missed featuring Tommy Donovan.
The Denver Zoo is welcoming 2 pale raccoon siblings who were rescued after being found inside the wall of a home. The raccoons suffer from leucism, which officially classifies them as white trash pandas. A Wisconsin bar shared video of the moment a herd of deer overran their patio area. One of the animals actually crashed through a window. The deer accidentally mistook the pub for an Elks Lodge. In related news, police in Georgia came to the rescue of a deer that ran headfirst into netting. A video posted to Facebook shows the deer being freed from the net and running away so it could mistake a Wisconsin pub for an Elks Lodge. Police are investigating the theft of a 7-foot-tall Sasquatch lawn ornament from a home in southern Michigan. Michigan State Police believe this was yet another failed attempt to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
That's Tommy Donovan. Yeah, deer are really stupid, man. I like that one. Anyway, Tommy's fantastic. We had a great interview. Tommy's very much a student of comedy. So in today's interview, we talk about a lot of comedy advice, how to find your comedic voice. We touch on other comedy podcasts. So if you're a fan of stand-up comedy, especially a comic, I think you'll enjoy today's episode. All right, before we get to the interview, though, here's what's going on this week in local comedy. We got a jam-packed week of shows. All right, tonight, Coffee Underground, hosted by No Expectations Comedy, Travis Thubband, Craig Holcomb. Show starts at 7. Get there before that to sign up. Radio Room on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. This week, Bill Reiner is going to be hosting, so reach out to Bill to get a spot. Also on Tuesday, the Auditorium in Asheville, hosted by James Herod. That show starts at 8 o'clock. Oh, excuse me. I think that show starts at 9 o'clock. James Herod. Third show on Tuesday in Columbia, the Art Bar. That show starts at 8:30, hosted by Patrick Fowler. DM Patrick to sign up and get on the list. On Wednesday, we have the Disclaimer Open Mic in Asheville, hosted by Carrie Goff. That show starts at 8 o'clock. On Thursday, we have the Jokes Out Loud show at the Comedy Zone, hosted by Brandon Rainwater. That's an 8 o'clock show. Tickets are $10. Sign up for the Jokes Out Loud show are 5 o'clock on the Jokes Out Loud Facebook page. On Friday, we have Habiba's All Jokes Aside. That's what it's called. All Jokes Aside show, hosted by Dante Anderson. That show starts at 9 o'clock. DM Dante for information. And this Saturday, we have a show at The Flat. This is put on by Stonegrown. Our headliner is Don Garrett, featuring Shane Lane, Ryan Rubin, and hosted by Robin Scott. That show is at 8 o'clock at The Flat, $5 cover at the door. And this weekend at the Comedy Zone, we have the Southern Mama Comedy Tour, named one of Variety Magazine's 10 comics to watch. Darren Knight, a.k.a. Southern Mama, will share the bill with Red Squirrel and Carrie Cargill. I don't know who these people are, but they sound funny. There's 2 shows on Friday at 7 and 9, 2 shows on Saturday at 6 and 9, and 1 show on Sunday at 7 o'clock. Tickets available at greenvillecomedyzone.com. All right, that's it for local comedy. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I hope you enjoy my interview with Tommy Donovan. Here it is. I have not read Gene Parrott, but that's how we'll start, with a guy whose name I don't know. Who's Gene Parrott?
Gene Parrott is another comedy coach who does a lot of podcasts and stuff, and he does online coaching for folks who want to be comedians.
Okay.
Now, one familiar podcaster that you and I both listen to is Joel Byers.
Joel Byers. I'm trying to get him on this show.
Yeah.
Shout out Joel. I don't think he listens, but yeah. Got to drive to Atlanta to get him on. But yeah, what's been your experience with Joel?
So
Joel runs the Hot Breath network, like, across the whole country.
It's the Hot Breathiverse.
The Hot Breathiverse slash the Joeliverse, or whatever he calls it. Hot Breath. Dude, shout out to you, Joel. Shout out to Joel. I need something like killing myself or something.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I don't know. That would be a little too dark, maybe. But yeah, you followed a lot of Joel Byers stuff?
Yeah, and I really appreciate a lot of those you and I met when I first started doing. You had been doing comedy a little bit earlier than I.
Potentially,
like
although I thought maybe you had been. When was your first mic? Do you remember the day?
First mic was just after my birthday in July of 2020.
Okay. My first mic was, late July 2020. It might have been the same night.
But you have had other experiences being on stage, right?
No.
Because one of my favorite stories, I'm sure you've told this on the podcast.
Maybe.
When you went up on a stage in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And you bombed.
Yes.
You got booed off the stage.
Thank you for bringing this up. That was after my first mic. But that happened.
When I heard that story, I was like, man, I admire this guy.
Why would you admire that?
Because you're still going.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of comedians out there. I know Jeff Foxworthy is very famous for saying that when he first went up on stage at the Punchline in Atlanta. He had friends of his go, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And he did really well. But he also said that he was also so scared that if he would have bombed, he probably would have never done it again.
Yeah.
And the fact that you went up in front of a hostile crowd and got booed out of the place, I don't know. With my temperament, I'd probably be like, I could never do this again.
No.
But
You're tough. You're tough. But yeah, that was a tough one. That was All Black Room, Uptown Comedy Corner, south of the airport. They are not going to tolerate things that are not funny. It was a contest night, and I had no business.
Oh, that made it even worse.
Yeah, dude.
Contest
I had no
night.
business being on stage that night. So I was like a month in. That was probably a month after I met you. That was when that happened.
I
so.
gotcha. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But that's cool, man. I was thinking about this recently because, like, we're coming up on 2 years of since COVID, sort of, and since we started comedy.
Yep.
And I was thinking of the people that are still around,
Doing it.
and you're one of them.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people, like, there's people that are still doing comedy, but they've like moved on, or you know, like Matt Addy's in Atlanta. You know, Jalen's still around, but he had been doing it before. Christina Yassi. She's around.
She showed up at a recent mic, which is kind of cool to see last week.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, Christina's here. That's pretty cool. So, yeah. So, I mean, and Matt Addy was one. Okay, so my day, during the day, I do home inspections. And I listen to a lot of radio and a lot of podcasts.
Yep.
And so when it comes to, like, comedy stuff, I'm always into listening to, you know, what some of the pros, people who have more experience than I do, who are coaches in the business, like to recommend and that sort of thing. And I try to soak it all in.
You're a student of the game, Tommy.
I try to be. I for many in everything I've ever done, I've been a soccer coach. I've been a professional mascot. All kinds of things. And in everything that I've ever done, I've always learned, if you want to be good at it, you got to become a student of that practice and what you do. And another bit of advice I'd always heard was never take advice from somebody who hasn't been there.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
There are a lot of people who, I mean, we experience this all the time.
Yeah.
Even doing open mics.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to give you their opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's common.
And you have
in
to
your
take
first
that
couple years, people come in and like to be the expert. I'm always suspicious of people who give it unsolicited.
And you have to take it in and take it with the right amount of context, if you will.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Matt Addy actually first introduced me to is a podcast called Let's Talk About Sets.
Let's talk about sets. Yep.
Man, those two guys, I can't remember their names.
I haven't indulged. I did see them. They came into town and there was like this brewery show that Whitney Rayner and I went to. And I think maybe Bill came there. But yeah, they did like this brewery tour. But yeah, anyway, their podcast is good though.
Yes, they had Mark Normand, one of your favorites, on.
Yeah.
And excellent. And so the cool thing about here we are just promoting everybody else's podcast, but the one thing that I really appreciated about what they did is they'd have one episode, and each episode they bring in another comedian. Mm-hmm. So someone who's working in the business.
And they'd actually analyze joke structure.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't really do that on here. We just kind of get to know the people. But yeah.
And that comedian would also they would pick, usually they would bring in a comedian who's their favorite and kind of break it down. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I liked about what they did was each episode would be a different topic.
Yeah.
So this time we're talking about storytelling.
Sure. How
to properly tell comedic storytelling.
Yeah.
Or another one would be like controversial topics, how to handle them, how to do it right. If you're
how to do jokes about school shootings,
how to do dark comedy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, how to do all kinds of different things. Each one will have a topic. And I'm assuming, I don't know what happened to that podcast. I'm assuming they got so busy with, hopefully, their own business.
So are they not putting out new episodes? Mm-mm. Oh, shoot.
They stopped.
See, dude, this is my biggest fear is like, if you structure it like that, it's great. But if you're too married to a structure that's like too hard to maintain, you might like fizzle out. Mm-hmm. That's why like I've tried to like make this one like super chill. But you like Joe Rogan's podcast, for example. What episode are they on? Like 1,000 whatever. But it's real open ended. But yeah, I didn't want to like marry myself too much to like a particular format. because like I know that could be hard to duplicate. Like, what if you ran out of stuff to talk about?
Well, you can also be flexible with it. You don't always have
Absolutely,
to
we could
stick
have
to it.
special episodes where you do stuff like that, and then deviate out of it.
Yeah,
But
that's the interesting thing about podcasting. Another podcast that I really got attached to was the Hot Breath podcast.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Here's Joel Byers, who is more experienced than we are,
yeah,
but he's still, there's that aspect of him where he's trying to push through that ceiling to
Yeah.
get to that point where he tells the stories on his podcast where he's like, I was just getting to the point where I was starting to headline and I was featuring and I had all these shows lined up, and COVID, boom, it screwed him over. Now he kind of feels like he's
because I think when COVID started, he was like 10 years in or something, and then he had produced his own special. What was that? What was the special?
Oh, this was funny. If you get a chance, listen to the Hot Breath. This took a lot of humility for Joel Byers to do. Talk about respect. He actually had Barry Katz on. Have you heard that episode?
No.
So he has Barry Katz on. Now, Barry Katz, if you're not familiar with him, he's a promoter and manager who's basically responsible for, you could say, discovering people like Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr.
Oh shit!
Yeah, all kinds of different people.
So Joel had him on.
So at one time, Barry had 4 people on Saturday Night Live. They're his clients. Another one of my favorites, Jim Brewer.
Yeah. I love Jim Brewer.
Yes.
He's a weird looking dude.
He's great.
Yeah.
It helps and you can look funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Not even weird looking, but his mannerisms, like how he talks and like moves, sort of. He's got this real distinctive. But anyway, so Barry Katz.
So Joel had Barry Katz on the show, and he goes, "All right, Barry, since you are a talent scout, essentially, you're very good at finding people who have potential. Tell me what you think about my
Holy
special."
shit!
Oh my god! And
I would
Barry
never have
tore it up.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Oh fuck!
And he was like,
"What did he say?"
He was basically like, "Okay, so I'm looking at the first 4 people in your front row," and he's like, "This guy is like 300 pounds." And then apparently, I think I remember there was another guy I think he was making fun of because he either had a hat on or he was bald. So basically what he was saying was, you put 4 people in your front row that are distracting. Right?
Okay.
And he's like, I know it looks like when comedians come out with specials that everything is spontaneous.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, when you see these Netflix specials and all this other stuff, the producers, the comedian, and everyone involved, they've picked who's sitting in those first several rows.
That's interesting.
Because they don't want it to be distracting.
They want it to be.
They
want it to be good-looking people.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like not too good-looking. Like whoa.
Yeah.
You don't want like a smoke show in the front row. Like you don't want like a 10 because then people will be, you want like 6s, 7s.
And then he started breaking down his material.
Oh gosh, I was gonna
like,
say the first critique I could live with, but like the material shit. Oh
yeah.
What did he start saying about his material?
So this was the time when Joel was doing. I hope Joel doesn't see this. 'Cause it's going to look like we're roasting him, but no, this is respect. I mean, after being roasted like this on my own podcast, I'd probably be like, I quit. But he was talking about, this was the time when Joel was doing his whole premise, his stage persona was that he was a trophy husband.
Yeah.
He liked talking about how he was the trophy husband.
Which is supposed to be self-deprecating, right? Because
Correct.
he's not the breadwinner.
Correct.
But it could be taken the other way too.
What Barry was saying is the way people can take it is usually that trophy. If you look at a trophy wife, the trophy wife is usually the
hot,
one who's hot but stays at home, does nothing, and all that.
Yeah.
And it's usually because they're dumb, they have no potential, that sort of thing. And it's almost as if like, why do I want to see a trophy husband? Or in other words, I think another thing that Barry was saying is, usually the trophy wife is, like you said, hot, so much better looking. Like, I don't deserve her.
Yeah.
right?
Right, so it could be
by
like,
you going up on stage and saying I'm the trophy husband, it makes it look like I'm so much better.
Yeah,
Than
you
Mike.
could.
It could be taken both ways.
But both are kind of negative.
Yeah, and I was like,
I think I'm better than you because I'm hotter than you.
Yeah.
Or
and I never took it that way, but when he broke it down like that, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah,
And there have been plenty of times, even I've gone up on stage, and I've gone, oh, I got this great set, and then I could tell that it's not working with the audience.
right.
And I'm like,
Overconfidence can screw you.
well, yeah, and it's well, it's easy to be so ingrained on your writing and what you want to say that you're not putting yourself into it gets into self-awareness, which for comedians is really hard.
It's huge
because I've gone up there and I've prepared a set that was taken by the audience in a completely different way than I was hoping it would.
Right.
Maybe sometimes in an offensive way, and I didn't mean to, or whatever.
Yeah, I've done that a lot, obviously.
And it's been an interesting journey, trying different stuff and trying to find your niche. Where do you feel like your niche is in the 2 years we've been doing this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's what
is your voice, if you will?
Well, I think my voice can kind of change depending on the day because, like, I need to be authentic to how I'm feeling in that moment, and I like to summon up positive, goofy type energy on stage. That's how I have fun, and that's how I feel I connect with an audience. But to your point, like when sets don't go well, it's kind of like when my agenda is above where the audience is and I don't acknowledge where the audience is. Like I don't come to meet them. I like just go over the top of them, delivering my material how I think it should be delivered without connecting first, I guess. And that's kind of where you're more performing your material than like than like being in the moment with them as you're doling it out. And it doesn't even matter like if the words are identical. Like I just kind of have a better feel, I think, now for like
when you're losing
where I'm at, if I'm losing, how to like kind of hopefully, and you know, I'm still very new. So, but yeah, I kind of feel like it's that authenticity that I have to commit to. I'm not a big character guy yet. I don't have like a lot of outlandish, totally other planet characters. I just kind of have to be authentic and use wordplay, metaphors, exaggeration, different things. I like to get a little bit more out there if I can, but that's kind of how I feel right now is just trying to be authentic and have fun with it. Mm-hmm. But what about you? How do you feel?
Well, that's the one thing that it's funny because I'll hear, whether it's a podcast or a documentary or whatever, I'll hear little nuggets, little gems, and they stick. Like one of the things I remember Gary Shandling saying on...
Love Gary Shandling.
When he did... What was that documentary that... I think Comedy Central did it.
There's a recent one that Judd Apatow put out.
Yeah.
The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling. It's on HBO. It's excellent.
This one was about comedians. And all they did was interview comedians.
So it wasn't just a Gary Shandling documentary. No, it was several. Okay.
Yeah.
The one I referenced is just Gary Shandling. But
one of the things I loved about Gary Shandling was he talked about one time he remembers going up on stage and completely bombing, and he was crushed.
Yeah.
And he went out, sat in his car, just staring there at the steering wheel. Just like, and I remember him saying what he ended up asking himself. He asked, what was it about what I did that was not genuine? In other words, I think the thing that I've learned about doing comedy is there is such a thing as trying too hard.
Yeah.
If you go up there and you try to be funny, the audience will see that, and it comes out as unauthentic.
Yeah.
Right? And
or if you're like, yeah, and it's a different way of saying it maybe, but if you're approval seeking, like if you need their laughter,
or if you're trying so hard that you're not being genuine to who you are, you're not being yourself.
Yeah.
And that goes back to self-awareness.
You got to kind of take the leap and put yourself out there, not expecting or needing the laugh, but being like, this is it. And then it'll come we'll have a better chance at it, I guess.
Another bit of advice. This goes back to the Joel Byers podcast. Joel, thank you, bro.
Joel. I hope Joel doesn't watch it.
So Joel did that one. I think it was a 2-episode series he did, or I know it was a longer than normal podcast he did with with Barry Katz. But then there was another one he did, and I think it was at the World Series of Comedy. He sat down with Jerry Corley.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was another one of those 2-hour, 2-part podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry said a lot of really good stuff, enough that make me go, I need to follow this guy. And I actually enrolled in a couple of his online classes and stuff. And one day he was talking about stage presence. He was talking about your voice. And I remember during our class, I asked, how do you find your voice?
Yeah.
Because you hear a lot of comedians talk about, like the Let's Talk About Sets guys have like an episode where it's like finding your comedic voice.
Sure.
And all that.
I'm dying to hear what his response
So
was.
I asked him, and I was like, how do you do it? And he goes, because a lot of comedians will go, it took me years, blah, blah, blah. And he summed it up perfectly by going, just be the way you are around your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, so when you, and I was listening to a podcast, and today it was a different podcast that Barry Katz was on. I think he said the exact same thing, is be who you are around your friends. When you are hanging out with your buddies or your girlfriends or whatever, and you're making the room laugh, try to pick that feeling up and bring it to the stage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where so many of my jokes come from, are like if I'm with my friends and we're having a conversation, and if we're laughing hard, I'm like, oh crap, what did we just say?
Write it down.
How did we say it? And I write it down right away. And in a way, I feel like it's almost cheating. Like I didn't come up with this out of thin air. It's like a funny thing that happened, and maybe I said or somebody else said. Like, but if they're not comics, they're not looking to capture this moment in any sort of way. So bottle it up.
But this is the thing, right? So I mentioned how I like to pull this from this comedian and this from this comedian. Jeff Foxworthy, he's famous for saying two things that popped in my head that I've heard him say is, one, when he goes up on stage, before he goes up on stage, the last thing he thinks is, I'm just going out there to talk to my friends. So that's kind of a good mindset to be in. But he also says when it comes to writing, he says comedians are like magpies. Really, all we do is go around and gather stuff. Oh, that's funny. Let me put that. That's funny. That's funny. So when we put the set together, we're trying to figure out, okay, it's like a puzzle. It's like, this is good. Let's match this with this. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you have maybe a 5-minute set.
Yeah. Or you got a chunk of stuff on a similar topic. Yeah.
It's really funny because that's a Sirius XM radio show I listen to. Jeff Foxworthy does. It's called The Comic Mind.
Okay.
And he has interviewed anybody from Jerry Seinfeld to, of course, people like Larry the Cable Guy and Ron White.
His boys.
He's also he's interviewed everybody out there that's in comedy. Jim Gaffigan, all these folks. He had Kathleen Madigan on, and she goes, what's silly is all I do is go up there and talk about stuff that happens to me.
Yeah.
And then Jeff responded by going, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
Rarely do we ever sit down and now I'm going to write jokes.
Dude, when I do that, it ends up terrible.
I do that too. And
the stuff that I just try to come up with from scratch, like, let me just think about stuff. Yeah. I've
done that. I've okay.
I have to. Yeah.
Now, Jerry Seinfeld is famous for going, I'm going to sit down and write 5 hours a day. That's, And
do you think he really does that?
Have you heard his
5 hours?
He does
That's
the calendar thing.
Yeah. He puts a red X on the calendar every day that he writes. Yeah,
and he doesn't want to break the chain, right? So, but that's one thing that Jerry Corley taught me about when I took his class. Is it's like joke writing. It's like how to write joke. What makes people laugh? What is it that makes someone laugh? And it's the juxtaposition of two ideas. That's essentially what it is the audience you're like a magician.
Yeah.
Audience thinks you're going in one way, and then you pull the rug out from under.
Misdirect. Yeah.
Misdirection, all those different things. And one of the things that I appreciated about what he taught was get used to sitting down. Because he wrote for the Tonight Show, Jay Leno, for so many years.
Yeah.
So he would literally, and he worked with Gene Parrott, another coach, author, and everything. And what he learned is, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write 10 jokes.
Yeah.
Once you get good at that, push yourself to 15.
Yeah.
Push yourself to next thing you know, you're writing 100 jokes.
That exercise got to be so helpful. And there's probably no better way to build that work habit or muscle than working for the Tonight Show. You got to do that every single day.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I did when I was taking this class, we would go for like a 3-hour Zoom call, and at the end we'd do a 5-minute set. And this was last summer.
Yeah.
And then we'd all, as not only as students but Jerry, would critique everyone's sets.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, which was really interesting. He had really good feedback.
Do you find that easy?
What?
Are you pretty cool about that? Like getting feedback on your set,
I like it.
Or giving feedback?
I was crushed. The first set I did, I thought, this is going to be good. So I did this one thing where I acted like, so I do home inspections for a living during the day, and I have this one bit that I wrote where I'm like, as comedians, we don't really worry about when we go in, or I'm sorry, as home inspectors, we go in to inspect a house, and we worry about whether the heating and air works or whether the electrical's safe, right? We don't worry about cosmetic stuff.
Right.
It's not like we walk in and we're like, oh my God, these curtains don't match the drapes. That is so wrong. Oh my God, you got to change this. None of this is working. We don't worry about that. That's for the homo inspectors. And it was really funny because I did that bit, which has gone okay. I mean, it's not hilarious.
I like it.
Yeah, and I've done it at home inspection conferences, and I've gotten a huge laugh. But it was funny because
that's for the homo inspectors.
I was watching, as I was doing my set, I was watching the comments, and there was one comedian, and she's from Colorado, and she goes, "Well, that was homophobic." And then I was like, oh. And then like Jerry, after the set, Jerry goes, I kind of steer away from that voice. You might not want to do that. That might be taken.
But that's you, Tommy.
But this is this is also Jerry sitting in California, where I probably would get roasted doing it there.
I don't know, man. I think that's pretty light. Here we are. It's June 1st, first day of Pride Month.
I know, right?
As we're recording this.
But see, that's the thing is, I try to have fun with that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't think it's homophobic because, like, it's a compliment.
I think,
there's the show Queer Eye, right? Yes. Where they have the sensibilities.
I admire. That's the thing. I admire stuff when somebody can come in here and go, look.
Although, yeah.
You shouldn't have the TV on that wall. You're throwing off the balance in the room. That kind of stuff. I still find all that.
I guess homo maybe has a negative connotation, but it goes with the sound alike of home inspector. But you say freaking homo.
Yeah, right. That's true. So
I love it though, dude.
But one of the things that I learned in that course is how to like literally, because there are times where I would try to do the Jerry Seinfeld thing. All right, every day I'm gonna get up at 6 a.m. and I'm gonna write for 2 hours before I go to work, and then I'd put my notebook in front of me and my pen down and go, got nothing. Mm-hmm. And so what he would do in this course was do exercises. Like 1 week it would be like write jokes about the news.
Sure. All
right. So you got a week, come up with however many. Maybe we're doing maybe the topic 1 week is double entendre. All right.
Yeah.
So your job for the next.
I still don't know what a double entendre is.
That would be.
I always forget.
My okay.
You have an example of
double?
one?
Yeah. So I have a bit that's double entendre that's actually related to home inspections and the Home Pros Radio Show podcast.
Okay. Shout out. We're gonna link all your stuff. Yeah. Tommy hosts his own podcast. Home Pro Radio Show.
I do a bit on stage where I'm like, I enjoyed hosting a home improvement show because. Someone like me who knows so much about how to take care of a home, it's nice to be able to help people out there who have questions. Like for one time I had somebody who called in and they had cracks in their foundation. Uh-huh. They wanted to know how to fix it. And I said, well, first, you got to look at how big your crack is. How big is your crack? Is it big enough to stick a screwdriver in it? Well, if it is, then you're going to want to put some caulk in it. Right? But not too much caulk. Because then you want to slam so much caulk into it that the crack gets worse. That's double entendre.
So double entendre, does it have to be filthy? Does it have to be like a sexual?
Well, no, it doesn't. But usually it is. That's where we have the most fun with it.
Yeah.
Double entendre basically is a word that means it has two meanings.
So it's just a pun that has.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a clean double entendre. I mean, double entendre is the basis of a lot of jokes. Like I've talked about a double entendre would be like, hey, I met my wife. Wait, no. How did it go? Oh, when I was in college, I was studying abroad.
So I married her.
Okay, so I liked her so much I married her. I've used that one on stage because there's that double entendre.
Yeah. I like that one. I like that one.
Everyone is thinking in one direction, and then there's a technique that I learned called reverses. Mm-hmm. So you take someone out one direction and then you flip it on them. You know who's really good at that? Anthony Jeselnik.
Jeselnik? Is that how you pronounce?
One of my Jeselnik. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. I mispronounced it. One of my favorite jokes is when he says he tells the story of the kid who was stuck in a refrigerator playing hide and seek. He couldn't get out and he died.
Okay.
But he at least went out a winner. Right? So you're going, oh no, and then boom.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorites, and y'all can think of what you want about Amy Schumer.
Amy Schumer.
But one of my favorite reverse jokes that I've ever heard was when she said, I've been dating my high school sweetheart. Yeah, now he wants me to take him to prom. I'm like, oh, dude.
She dated a dude in high school?
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
So you're thinking one way, and then she reversed it.
Yeah.
That's a reverse. So.
I like that. I like that a lot.
But,
I know what those are, I guess. I just haven't. I don't know. I'm not in the habit of labeling
that's
them.
the thing.
But you kind of know it when you see it.
Yeah. So those are the things that you learn when you break it down.
But that's fun.
Into the mechanics.
It kind of sounds like, your personality and temperament. I mean, with your job as a home inspector, you are technical and analytical in how you analyze things. It seems like you apply the same kind of approach to joke writing. Is that kind of fair?
Yeah.
Like, have you always been like that? Is that kind of how your brain tends to work? Like with,
I think in everything I've ever done, I've kind of like, you really understand how people do things.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people don't understand or appreciate is when you go up and you see a comedian do a 1 hour Netflix special, what you're seeing is the aftermath of probably at least a year's worth.
Yeah.
Well, for the real pros.
Yeah.
For most of them, it's more than that.
Yeah.
Tweaking and trying and editing and all this other
stuff. For sure.
Right? So
painstaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the things that Joel Byers and Jerry Corley and some of these other folks do when these podcasts, they're trying to help people like us skip ahead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, even with Jeff Foxworthy and the Comic Mind and some of these others, they had to fail a lot in order to get to the level they are.
For sure.
And I guess if you become a student, when I was a soccer coach, I had a mentor of mine who used to always say, become a student of the game. That's the best way to become a really good coach, is to understand how the game works.
For sure.
Then, once you understand it, can you implement and figure out how to help other people understand?
Yeah.
So
no, I think that applies to comedy 100%. I went to Hillsdale. We talk about that sometimes, but we had to be like that. Like I played football. You mentioned sports and soccer and coaching. That was so like we had to do it that way because we were less athletic than our competition. Similar in size maybe, but we're a school of 1,300 kids in Hillsdale playing Grand Valley State that has 20, 30,000. And they're national champion, perennial, like recruit better. So if we weren't dialed in on our technique so precisely, we would get blown away. Correct. So we were so disciplined, so studied up on film. Our technique was rock solid, and that's how we competed with these guys. I mean, we had to have athletes too, and we had to have playmakers, but we became obsessed with that, almost to a fault. But yeah,
it's all about getting to the point where you were probably different than your competition because you understood why you were doing what you were doing. Yeah. Because you were so ingrained in the mechanics, the skills, the techniques. Whereas a school that big probably just takes their best athletes and put them out on the field.
And it can go too far too, which is interesting. Like if you're too rigid with your approach and not like you and I think this applies to comedy too, is like there's a certain point where like the scheme and the game plan kind of go out the window, and you got to go off instinct in the moment, make a play, and you got to freaking go for it.
Yes.
And if you're too like, I got to stick to the plan, then you'll probably fall on your face, miss a tackle, or miss an assignment, and it won't work. And on stage, I think that's too. Like you got to be able to call an audible and have that talent in the moment. So
that's probably been, I would say, my biggest struggle.
Really?
Because I'm one of those guys who, before I go on stage, a lot of times I'm looking at my set on paper, trying to memorize it, trying to make sure I say this the right way and say that the right way. But a lot of times you got to go up on stage and be in the moment. I mean, you have to. And that's one of the things. Early on, I would go up there and I would just rattle off my set.
Yeah.
And that might work on radio, which is also my background, and podcasting.
Yeah.
But when you have a live audience, there's got to be an interaction there.
100%.
There's got to be a conversation.
Yeah.
And so when I first started, I was so tuned into the mechanics that I wasn't free enough to be in the moment.
Absolutely.
Still figuring that out.
I'm trying to do that too more, and one thing I started doing is I stopped taking up a set list, or at least if I do have one, I'll keep it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I'll just be like, F it, I'm just gonna go with this. I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna just, and that makes me feel, well, one, because I'm lazy. I'm like, okay, I don't have to have the set list anymore. Cool. Like, I don't know. I find it's weird. I think, oh gosh, so much of this too, just in life in general, and keeping myself motivated is like conquering my own laziness and setting up good habits. But yeah, not having the set list has helped me be more free on stage, I feel like, and also just hitting more mics too, which I know is tougher. You have more responsibilities than I do. You have kids and a family and everything. But like, I mean, I think repetition helps with that. Like, how many mics are you able to hit now a week?
If I wanted to, I could. If I really tried hard, I could hit 3.
Okay.
And open mics are tough because sometimes I feel like they could not be helpful.
Yeah.
In some ways. I say that because the way I look at it, and this is another bit of advice that I heard and I loved.
Sure.
This is from Foxworthy. He said he actually got this advice. This is Jay Leno via Jeff Foxworthy.
I love all the nuggets here. This is great.
So Jay Leno was sitting with him one night as Jeff Foxworthy was first starting in Atlanta at the Punchline. They're sitting at a Waffle House one night.
Nice.
Can you imagine this? Sitting
with Jay Leno at the Waffle House?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
And he's like, yeah, come on. You know, he's like, come on, Jeff. All you got to do is come up with 1 minute of material a week.
Yeah.
And Jeff, being the young, cocky comedian, was like, shoot, I can write 1 minute. I can write 30 minutes a week. The issue is you can write all you want, but it's the good stuff. What Jay was saying is come up with 1 minute. Just try to come up with 1 minute of good, solid material a week.
Yeah.
If you can do that in a year, you have an hour special.
Yeah.
Think about the math.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
What
I like to utilize open mics for is I'll wrap a minute or so. I'll try to wrap a minute or two of new stuff around other stuff that I think is good.
Yes.
That I know works.
Sure.
So that way I can go up on stage, maybe open with the good solid jokes, finish with the good solid jokes. If they're laughing, then I know in the middle, this new stuff, if I'm getting the same laughs as the beginning and the end, ooh, this is worth keeping. Or if I'm not, if I start to lose the audience, I know, hey, I got to work on this.
Strengthen that.
Yeah. Now, I'm at the point where I feel like that's what I need open mics for. And a lot of times open mics are just filled with comedians in the audience.
Yes.
And that's tough.
Yes.
Because not knocking on comedians, but most of us, when we're out in the audience at an open mic, we're going, okay, I'm going to go to this bit, and I'm going to go to this bit.
Yeah, we're not paying attention.
I hope I don't go over time and that sort of thing. So we're not getting that interaction. So,
right.
You know,
and comics laugh at different types of things too. If you get
Correct.
the comics to laugh, sometimes the joke might not. It might be too savage for a general audience member.
And, a lot of times comics will laugh because their friends up there. I want to make them feel good. I want to make, that sort of. Maybe there's a context to what was said that only you and that person get.
It's an inside joke.
That in front of a real room.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But, so what I've kind of started doing stuff on social media to try to get that. I try to treat social media as an open mic.
Yeah.
So
Mark Norman does that. He shops tweets.
Yes, I follow Mark Norman does it. Larry the Cable Guy does it. Who else does it? Augie Smith does it. He's another one of my favorites. My mind's drawing a blank.
No, you're cool. You make a good point though about audiences.
That's what Twitter's good for.
Twitter, yeah.
If you come up with a one-liner or something like that, put it out there, see what kind of response you get. And if you get a good response, then hey, that might be something.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I view all stage time as positive in the sense of you got on stage, great. But I will, it is kind of
it's good though
because you're developing the muscle of being on stage in front of people, even if you know them. Even if there's always that little bit of nerves and stuff that you're conconquering, and just the comfortability
and getting your set down. That's the other thing that's good for Tom Emmons, one of our local guys, who has been doing a lot.
We need to get him on the show.
He talks about it a lot. Like, hey. Sometimes these open mics are just for you to get your own set down, and get used to how it's worded, and do you have the word economy there? Does the flow? So there is a certain amount of that is good, even if you don't have anybody in the audience that is responding.
Yeah, but to your point though, like when you do the local mics so much that like more people know you, more people are like. The deck's gonna be stacked a little bit more for you to do well because people are gonna know you and like you and laugh at stuff that maybe a complete stranger wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to drive more out of
which
city.
is a good idea.
Asheville has great audiences, and God bless them. They let us on stage there. Yeah, I was at Art Bar last night and such a fun experience.
The host down there is really good.
Patrick Fowler. Yes. Yeah, I really like Patrick. That was a tough room for me at first. Like when we first started in 2020, dude, like we had kind of our fun group here. We had a very tight-knit group starting off. We probably thought we were doing better than we were, and then we go to Art Bar and I bomb my dick off for 5 minutes with offensive shit, and they were like, who the hell is this white guy? Like, not white, but it was like you just don't want to be the edgelord douchebag.
Yeah.
Tone deaf, not self-aware. And I think I did like an OJ joke and came in hard with abortion shit. Like all this stuff. And, maybe you get away with a couple of those after you won them over. But yeah. But Art Bar's great, and they get, that's every Tuesday night at 8:30. They get good audiences. Like I think last night, we probably had like 30 people in the crowd. So that's priceless in terms of like the rep, like getting that rep in front of a real life crowd. That's like a comedy zone
feedback. That feels. I mean, it's really helpful.
But I do love both. I love the community side, and I do, and getting out and testing stuff and kind of rotating the material. But anyway, what's your favorite mic to go to? It's Comedy Zone. That's kind of your home stage. So you.
Yeah. Comedy Zone has good and bad nights. Last Thursday night was a good one. I was really excited about that. I don't know if it was because I went earlier in the lineup or not. I mean, I went fourth.
Yeah.
And I had a really good set.
Yeah.
And then there are nights where I go like 19th.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude.
Late in the lineup at a Comedy Zone show could be pretty rough.
But here's the thing is that even that being considered, if you could take an audience, it'll say a lot about your material if you can go that late and crush.
Yeah, for sure.
That way, if you have an audience that's tired, maybe put off by some of the people who've gone before you.
Yeah,
and still do well. Yeah, that says a lot about what you're writing.
It's actually not necessarily. It's not even that. I don't know. I'm gonna jinx myself. I was about to say it's not that hard because you could just acknowledge. I know it's late. Riff off of one of the douchebags that went before you. and then go to a good joke, and maybe you got them. You know, like if you just acknowledge, like I'm tired too. I've been sitting back there listening to these assholes.
There are certain things.
You know,
there are certain things that I wish were more common practice at open mics.
Like what?
Like comedians staying for the whole show.
Yeah.
Let's say we.
I try to stay for the whole show. You're not.
Yeah.
talking
No,
about me,
you
right?
do. No, I'm not talking about you. No,
Okay.
definitely not. You're always there to the end.
Yeah, I'm a comedy whore, bro.
But there are a lot of people. If you have like 20 people in the audience, or sorry, 20 people in the lineup, and you're number 19, you just sat there and watched everybody else.
Yeah.
And then I will say this: the appropriate length of a open mic show should be about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because once we get to the 90-minute mark, that's when people start getting up and leaving.
Yeah.
But it makes it worse when, I mean, there are certain groups of comedians who will show up at these open mics. They'll go in the top, 10 spots, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of frustrating to see, because it's like,
big timing.
yeah, and it's like,
You
hey,
know who you are. Stay the whole time, you bitches.
we're all trying to figure this out, and none of us are going to get anywhere if we're not helping each other out and offering feedback and that
for
sort
sure.
of thing. Some of the best nights I've had at open mics were when I've had other comedians come up to me and be like, hey, I like that one bit you did. Have you thought about doing it this way?
Sure.
Or doing it that way? And which is nice. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, in a way, I kind of feel like it's disrespectful. I
Yeah.
mean, I have to be honest. I mean, you go in there and you do your thing and then leave.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's right.
Yeah. I think,
So,
yeah.
and I can understand the folks that come here from an hour and a half away and they need to get home.
For sure.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. There's yeah. People got obligations too. I understand. Like you gotta
And then
leave, but it's nice. The hang is nice. The hang is part of it. I feel like just
It
being
is.
around it.
You're
It's
right
not all
about
about
that.
the 5 minutes you're in the spotlight. It's about
And I think
have
one
fun
of and for a host, someone who's and I'm hoping to start something around here. One of the things I learned from Patrick at the Art Bar, I was like, dude, I went down there. I think it was about 2 months ago, and crushed. I had a great set.
Nice.
And I was like, dude, I love this atmosphere. Everyone's like happy. What is it about this room that is conducive to the creativity and the freedom that you can feel going up on stage telling jokes and having fun?
Yeah.
And I think it had everything to do with how he was running the room.
Sure.
He went up there, was having fun.
He's got DJ Topher, the microphone, his co-host.
Yeah.
That's like Dave Letterman's guy, whatever that guy's name's. Paul
Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer.
He's a sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nothing against Topher. I don't even call him a sidekick because Topher's a good comic in his own right. So I didn't mean that. But yeah, they got that dynamic. He's very positive on stage.
That's what I'm saying. And I mean, there are some hosts that'll get up there and be real negative, or they'll make fun of the person who was just on stage. It's one thing to have fun with someone.
Yeah. It should be like gentle ribbing.
And I feel like with open mics, we're all trying stuff out.
Yeah.
Right? Don't criticize the person who just went up in front of you.
Yeah. I think the only time that you got to address it is if somebody's just a complete asshole.
I will agree with that. If it's called
I've
for
seen situations where there's an offensively racist joke that there's no explaining it. It's not even. It was just racism. It wasn't even a joke. You got to kind of acknowledge because the room feels that shit. So good hosts, one of the best hosts I think, and I don't know if you get to see him host that much because it's the Monday. Travis Thubbin. Have you ever seen Travis host?
Yes.
He's gracious. He is hysterical. He builds the other comics up.
Which is totally the opposite of when he's on stage.
Yeah.
Because he's like, "Rrr."
Well, yeah, in a way, yeah.
But he does it in a fun way. He's like a Sam Kinison type.
I'd say there is a difference kind of when he's performing in the lineup versus being the host. And I'm going to gush all over him. I'm not sucking up. I mean this, Travis, but he is... he cares about how the show goes.
Yes.
And he I think he wants to do well enough, but not so where he's the star. He wants to get the room hot. He always brings each comic up with a personal introduction. that's funny, and he'll riff off the previous one. He won't stay too long on that. He won't linger. He'll keep the show moving. And then he was the host when that one comic did the overtly racist thing.
Oh, okay.
And the way he handled that, I was so impressed.
I've seen
he took
Brandon
the mic.
do that too.
Really?
Well,
he actually took the mic from this guy. He said, "Listen, I'm sorry. You got it." Like, he wouldn't even say, "I'm sorry." He's like, "That's not appropriate." Like, and he addressed it. And then he said, "It's not really fair what you just did. Now we got to pick this up. Like, there's no coming back." And then I forget exactly how he did it, but he handled it well. And then he passed it off and tried to get the energy back up. And he passed it off to Jordan Warlick. Do you know Jordan? He's a new guy, basketball player.
Yeah.
I love Jordan. He's great. And Jordan goes up there and he's like, "Hey, so that was weird."
Yeah.
Just complete perfect energy to follow something that was that,
One of my favorite moments like that, Brandon.
Yeah, what was this one?
Did at the Comedy Zone, where it was a guy was going up there and he had a funny premise.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a hack premise, but I could understand where he was going. He was trying to be funny, but the audience was taking it the exact opposite.
What was the topic?
The premise was going, why do we have to have Black History Month?
Oh God.
And
there's certain places you don't go.
Why do we only give him 1 month? Or no, what did he say? He was talking about, I forget what it was. It was just one of those typical white people get the rest of the month, and I forget what it was, but it was being taken completely out of it. The audience wasn't liking it.
Yeah.
And where this comedian was making a mistake was he was doubling down when you could hear everyone moaning and groaning, and he should have went, all right, let's go to something else.
Yeah.
But he was just...
He didn't know what else to do.
I don't know if he felt like he had to finish that set or he didn't have
that's
anything
the
prepared.
worst when you're new and you're going down a path and you have no idea of how to get out of it.
And I got a funny story about that in a sec, but it was funny because it was really intense, and it was the tension you could feel, and that's what comedy is, right? You build the tension, and then you release it. This is what Brandon did. Mm-hmm. This guy got off stage, everybody's pissed off. You could feel the tension in the air, and Brandon grabs the mic and goes, "Let's hear it from my African American Studies professor," and that was so funny. And I was like, "Yeah!" And he, in a fun way, brought the room back.
That's so great.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I've done it before where I have a bit that I like to do when I do it right, it goes over well. It's where I talk about being a left-handed person.
Yeah.
And how hard it is to do things as a lefty. And I was making a joke about how
you're a minority.
I never played golf growing up because left-handed clubs are hard to find.
Yeah.
Because you know what they say, golf is a right people sport.
Yeah.
And that usually gets a chuckle. But one night I said it wrong at the Comedy Zone. And things can go racial real fast at the Comedy Zone on some nights.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake. It was because that can be tongue twisting. And I was like, because you know what they say, golf is mainly a white people sport. And then I heard this one dude in the audience go, "I beg to differ." And I was like, that totally threw me off. The rest of my set,
black dude was like, "You friggin' racist."
And I was like, and I just went, "Oh, dude, now I've lost him."
Yeah,
because now he thinks I'm just a white supremacist up here.
You're right supremacist.
And I remember looking at him and go, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I screwed up the joke. I was supposed to say right, which is even worse. You try to explain your joke." And I remember you laughing and like a couple of other people who've seen the set before and were like, "Tommy's eating shit." But
some of those moments are like, when a joke doesn't work or when somebody bombs. I love some of those moments in a way. People give me crap. I try to do it less now. Like I used to laugh a lot when a joke didn't go a certain way, but because you see the authentic person come out.
You do.
You see their real fear and like, oh, and there's something great about that. Just because we've been there, So
I think another one of those rules that I wish more comics would follow during open mic is it's one thing to tease somebody. Like Ben Jennings has gone up on stage after me. And you would go, "Hey, let's hear it for Tommy Donovan, the father of Greenville comedy," right?
Yeah.
So he's joking about the fact that I'm older than most people out there and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's that's funny. I know him. I'm comfortable with that. We've talked about it before. He's even come to me after the show or after his set and gone, I hope you're okay with that. Right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. 'Cause I know you. That's one thing, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me. But when you go up on stage and rip on somebody that you don't even know or not even talked to yet, or haven't met, I'm like, dude, that's wrong. Like I had one chick go up, and I say this, she's a chick. Sorry, but she is. She went up after me and she said something about, oh, that's interesting seeing an old white bald guy talk about. And I'm like, what an effing bitch.
Dude, I knew that one stuck because you're not bald.
I was like, dude, I'm already sensitive about this. But,
hey, Tommy, I got something for you. Oh, shit, it's not in here. Laser comb. I'm paranoid about going bald. I'm on Rogaine.
Oh, no.
I got this hat that has lasers in it, and I don't know if I have the box for it. 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Yeah. Just trying to hold on to what I got.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like, when we're at open mics, we're trying stuff out. And if we're good at what we do and we're doing our job up on stage, when we walk off the stage, we know if our bit sucked.
Dude, I know.
If it didn't land.
Yeah, it's its own punishment.
And to go up there and actually
pile on for something.
Pile on if somebody bombs over something. I don't know if that's
especially
right.
A guy who's not bald.
Yeah.
Just say he is. Bullshit.
I'm balding.
No, you look great. Seriously. But I've had 2 instances where that happened. First was my first time ever on stage. Jalen Orr went up after me and said, I'm glad I had to follow that white supremacist.
Yeah.
Or misogynist asshole, because I made the joke about women not being able to fly planes. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not great drivers. That was why they might not be able to do that. And then I tried to flip it in a positive way. Anyway, so Jalen gave me shit. And then, the other one was at the art bar, Lennon Ratliff. And we had to talk about it afterwards.
Oh, okay.
But he basically called me a rapist. Which, I didn't have any jokes about rape. I don't have any jokes about rape, just to be clear for the record. But I don't know. That was after the first time I did a very tone-deaf set at the art bar. And I got mad at him. I talked to him after the show. I got in his face. I was like, dude, that's not, like, I'm an open micer, kind of to your point. Like,
at what point
I bombed,
is that slander?
Like, and the other thing was, it was 2 comics. He was 2 comics after me. He wasn't immediately to follow me.
That makes it even worse.
So why would he go out of his way?
Yeah.
The people had kind of forgotten about it. There was a really nice comic that went after me to clean everybody's palate. So, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, then
he apologized, and then I kind of apologized too for blowing up on him, because I definitely blew up on him. I was about to fucking go nuts.
Yeah. Well, to go back to what you were saying about Travis.
Yeah.
And how he's like, his stage persona is almost different when he's going up as a comic and going up as a host. Mm-hmm. I think you made a really good point that I think a lot of people that I've heard a lot of professional comedians talk about. Mm-hmm. That a lot of us who are new to the business don't understand is that I've heard them say in podcasts and in person, because I've opened for some touring comedians as well, who will tell me hosting, when it comes to hosting a show, that's kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks. Travis is one of those who understands, okay, when I go up as a comedian, it's time to be funny. When I go up as a host, it's time for me to steer this ship.
Yep.
Right? And
be funny, but get the audience prepared for what they're about to experience.
I actually got a little bit of that talk last weekend working with Ryan Davis and his host, who was
Ryan Davis was the headliner at Comedy Zone.
He was
last
a headliner.
Week. You DJ'd?
Yeah. And I was running the soundboard, and I don't really call it DJing. I like saying running the sound booth.
Maybe I'll say saying that.
Yeah,
because I'm doing that.
Because we're not DJing.
I'm running the sound booth on Friday this week. Yeah.
The host, T Slim, was telling me how it was interesting, because he was telling me how he was a really good host.
Yeah. What kind of things did he do?
So what we talked about, I've heard anyone from John Heffron to other professional comedians. I've heard it on the Jeff Foxworthy Comic Mind show, where comedians will talk about, touring comics talk about, there's hosting is a lost art. Because a lot of these folks like Brian Regan and others, Reno Collier's another one, who went up through the ranks, starting as a host at their home club. Then they became a feature, and then they started touring. And they'll all tell you about what it was like to learn how to host. Okay.
So they have a frustration as they tour.
As headliners.
As they tour as a headliner, they're going to towns like a Greenville or like a Charlotte or like wherever.
And they're rolling their eyes.
And they got an MC, and the host is just not teeing them up for success.
And actually, this is a conversation I've had with Brandon as he's trying to train me to be a host at the Comedy Zone. It's like, this is what you got to do. And he's talked about how he still gets messages from touring comedians teasing him about, I can't believe you had this person host the weekend I was there, and this that, and the other. And I'm like, dang. And he's like, so he's like, even when you're here DJing or running the sound booth, even if you're not hosting, take a note of what they're doing and learn from their mistakes and that sort of thing. So
any comments about me?
No,
Good,
no.
Thank God. I have hosted a few times.
I
think it's gone pretty well.
Yeah.
The hosting's fun. You're hosting this weekend, right?
Yes.
Yeah? That'll be fun. That'll be real fun.
So, and hosting's a really good experience because I think for me, what it's allowed me to do is become more comfortable with just being on stage. Because what I get to do is I draw more so on my broadcasting background, hosting a podcast, hosting a radio show, being on TV and radio. That's basically what you do. You're setting the room. You're preparing everybody. You're covering all the rules. Hey, we got a $5 per person minimum. Make sure you tip your waitresses and keep your table conversations down. Cover all that stuff. A lot of times, what a lot of these folks say is your local hosts, who are budding comedians themselves, want to be funny when they go on stage. And that's not necessarily what your job is that night. And one of the things that can be very effective, however, is if you cover those requirements that you have to do, but make it entertaining. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like what this comedian T-Slim was telling me this past weekend, he was going, now that I'm touring with Ryan Davis, who's out of Charlotte, very funny guy. I've learned, because I told him when he came off stage, you did a really good job of preparing the audience by telling them, put your phones away, keep your table conversations down, and this, that, and the other. Covering all those basics. And he goes, he's been touring long enough where he understands that that's his job. And then there are certain clubs that you can go to. Like, for example, he specifically talked about what's the club in Birmingham, Alabama? The
Side Splitters. I have no idea. The Astro.
It's not the Astro.
I know what you're talking about. The Star or something.
Stardome.
Yeah.
He goes, when you go in there, they'll tell you, here's your script. These are the menu specials. These are the rules. This is the rest.
They'll hand the script to T-Slim.
If you do not say these things, he says that if you're hosting at the Stardome, they will make you as the host sign a release that when you're on stage, you will cover these details. If you don't, you're not going to get paid.
So that's if you want to bring your own host. Like, they'll probably provide a host, right? Like,
they probably do, and they probably make that person.
And he'd be like, "No, I want
to
be the first comic." So, okay, but if you're the first guy, you got to read all this stuff.
Correct.
Did he appreciate that though?
Yeah,
I'm sure he would, because that provides structure to the show.
Yes, and he was actually. He said that on the list were also sponsors.
Yeah.
So there are sponsors that you were required to mention.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, that sponsor's totally paid money to the club
for sure,
and is not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
So he goes, like he said, for example, one of the sponsors, he goes, what you do is you make it funny though, right? They give you the script.
Yeah.
Make those things on there funny. So he said, like, for example, one of the sponsors was, let's say, Joe's Limousine Service. right? So so he gets up there and he had to say that offering limousine rides to the Tri-City area, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So he had to get up there and go, hey, I want to make sure that all y'all give Joe's Limousine Service a try, offering service to the 3-state area. And what's even better? Their drivers won't get mad at you if you have sex in the back of the car during your ride or something. Yeah. That got a huge laugh.
Yeah.
And whatever his joke was. Uh-huh. And when he went off stage, the folks from the limousine service happened to be there that night, and they were like, that was awesome. Yeah, you made it, because he made it funny, made it entertaining.
Right. And people remember it. They weren't mad that that's technically probably not allowed.
Yeah. So he covered the bases, made it entertaining, and then got the room prepared for the next person that's getting ready to come on stage.
For sure.
So
I have kind of a self-serving question. You mentioned sponsors. We don't have any sponsors for this podcast. Mm-hmm. I have not even asked. I don't even know how to go about doing that. You run your own show, Home Pros Radio Show, and you've been in radio before. I mean, how do you go about even shopping for sponsors or like doing any of that? Or is there like a point where because I don't care if we have sponsors. I do this for free. But, I've had other guests say, Christian Williams in particular, who's just on, said it does bring a level of legitimacy to it. You kind of have more buy-in, you're just taking it more serious and, in a professional sense. And I'll still try to make sure it's a good product and not, whatever. But how do you go about sponsorships? Do you have any thoughts about that?
A lot of it has to do with the number of listeners, the number of downloads you have. What sponsors want to know is how many downloads you have a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're looking at exposure.
Sure. So what is too small to even think about it?
Usually what you want to do is you want to get to, I think what I've understood it as 10,000 downloads per episode.
Oh, shit.
I know. It's it feels like an eternity away.
Yeah.
And
because we're at about 120.
And when you're at the point where you're getting that many downloads, whoever your podcast, who you post your podcast through, who you brought
Anchor, but it goes on everything. So Spotify, Apple.
I work through Libsyn. All these people, Libsyn or other Podcast One, all these distribution folks. Mm-hmm. When you get a certain amount of downloads, then they'll actually take your podcast for you and start shopping it to advertisers.
Okay.
And they get a cut of whatever they sell.
Do you have to sign something with them where you give equity of the show to them?
I don't think it's that I've heard Joe Rogan talk about this when he was talking about be careful because there are platforms out there that'll go, we own part of the show if you stay away from that.
Right.
But the one thing that we do, because we don't get 10,000 downloads an episode for the Home Pros Radio Show.
What do you guys get?
What
if you don't
we
mind
do,
me asking.
we get about 7,000.
7,000 is fantastic.
And that's taken about 5 years for us to get there, though. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is but we do, I've reached out to companies that have been that I feel like would be a good match. And
what steps did you take to grow it to 7,000, wherever you're at?
Just be patient.
And consistency with episodes?
The biggest thing you can do is make sure your content is interesting.
Yeah.
Because if it's good, it's going to get shared and organically grow it. The other thing they always tell you to do is have guests on your show, which you do.
Yeah.
So try to have that's one of the reasons why Joel Byers, for example, reaches out to a Barry Katz and Jerry Corley.
Yeah.
Because they all have followers.
Sure.
And if I wasn't distracted by wanting to do all this comedy stuff with the Home Pros Radio Show podcast, I'd probably be reaching out to other podcasters.
Sure.
That cover home improvement and stuff like that and have them on. And then
right.
That's one of the easiest ways is having guests on.
Yeah.
And
so we're kind of following that path, it seems.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have
having people that have followers like
Brent Pella and David Koechner.
Those were big grabs.
Yeah, for sure.
So
the ironic part is those the downloads for Brent Pella's and David Koechner's weren't the most downloaded episodes of the show.
Yeah.
They may be discovered later, I guess, because once it's on YouTube, anybody could find it. But But yeah, it is kind of interesting what hits and what doesn't. You know, when it comes to like also the social media landscape is interesting. Because Reels and TikTok now, because when you do your newscast, you do Reels, right?
Yes.
Like it's formatted as a reel.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
I know a little about this.
Yeah.
But
so Jerry Corley was one of his assignments he gave us one week is to write jokes about the news.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And I'll never forget this. I had so much fun with this assignment. He had 5 news stories.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, write a punchline for these, and then next week we'll see what you come up with.
Right.
And one of my favorites was it was a McDonald's. It was a McDonald's employee who was fired for getting his. God, I wish I could remember it now.
It's okay.
I'm probably going to give away the punchline. It was a McDonald's employee was. Oh, gosh. It was something about getting his finger stuck in the dishwasher or something. And then I made a joke about how like the other employee, I forget what it was. I'm going to ruin it.
Was it Jerry Corley's joke or your joke?
It was Jerry Corley gave us the
prompt,
the setup.
I see. But it was your punchline.
And I put the punchline.
You forgot your punchline?
God, I totally
Come on, Tommy.
It was a McDonald's employee was fired for getting his hand stuck in the dishwasher. And of course, everyone's thinking the dishwasher, like the machine.
Oh, but it was the person.
So I made it as if it was a person. And God, I forget how it is.
Susan was really mad.
Yeah, it was something like that. And it was funny because his assistant was like, bah!
Yeah.
And that felt so good because I know he's given that setup to hundreds of people who take his class.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the assistant was going, oh, here we go. We're going to same old punchlines, blah, blah, blah. And when I said it and she burst out laughing, I was like, yeah, that was a win.
Yeah.
So anyway, later, Jerry goes, hey, I have a suggestion for you. I think you should write more of those.
Yeah.
I think you might have something there. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. So I had done a set, and he said he felt like I was just your, average, he was comparing me to, have you ever heard of the Manitowoc Minute?
I know Manitowoc is in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Oh, that's because
I'm from Wisconsin.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. What's his name? Oh, Charlie Barron's.
Okay.
Charlie Barron's has been on the show with. He's talked to Joel Byers. He's been on the show. He's been on he was a guest on Jeff Foxworthy's show.
Yeah.
And he started as a student of Jerry Corley's.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and he was kind of doing the same exercises. And he goes, you remind me of Charlie Barron's.
Yeah.
And when he finished my class, he went and started doing YouTube videos where he did the Manitowoc Minute. And he was just doing like, oh, yeah, we're going to go ice fishing.
Now, dear, hey, don't you know?
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was doing like a news report as, a goofy Midwesterner. Everyone has the redneck character.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he was doing it as a Midwesterner, and it blew up. Now he's selling out comedy clubs everywhere.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have something that drips content.
So he goes, you need to do that.
Yeah, so
that's how I started doing the newscast. So that's the format
you're doing the reels. Yeah. So like on a technical level, I think those get viewed by way more people than just your followers. Like let's say you have like 1,000 followers on Instagram. Like you get exposure. Like I could show you the clips we've shared on just our interviews. Like they'll get like 10,000 views.
Okay.
And like several hundred likes. Like I'll post pictures on my personal one that don't even get close to that. But because of that reel format, people are, I think it's like a slot machine algorithm where like people are just mindlessly and they'll stick on stuff that like catches their attention. So like I really, your format is good in terms of like they're quick hitting. It's got, like good video graphics and audio and everything. And I think you do captions, right?
No, I don't.
Do captions. Add captions. There's a program you can get online called Veed. It's like, I don't know. It's like $30 a year or something subscription. Totally worth it. It auto populates the captions, so it doesn't take too long.
Cool.
And that helps keep people engaged because sometimes people will read it, look up. Whatever will trick your brain into staying on it longer. But yeah, so I do all that stuff, and that's what gets our followers slowly, organically growing is the clips.
And that's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And then if they stick around for a 2-hour interview, then that's great because then I don't even care if there's a small following. If there's like 100 people that listen to this or like a mix of people that go in and out, like if they're sticking along for the whole, that's great. That's worth more to me than people who just like the TikTok. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you're bought in more to like who the people are, what's going on.
You're getting a more authentic audience.
Yeah. So I'd rather have a slow build of that, although I hope it doesn't take fucking 40 years. But
yeah.
It'd be nice for things to pop off occasionally, but like, but yeah, it is interesting because YouTube Shorts is doing it. I can never figure out. There's no rhyme or reason to me as to like which ones do better. Like sometimes one will do better on YouTube and do terrible on Instagram, the same video.
I agree.
And one will do crazy on TikTok. I hate TikTok. I'm just going to say it. I never have shit go that well on there. Like I do, it's okay, but I'm not having like, like you have great luck on TikTok.
Yeah, my TikTok videos, those videos are doing really well on TikTok.
I hate TikTok.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm shading because I'm figuring.
But see, but you know what's funny? I'm the same way. Like I'll have a video blow up. One of my news you may have missed. Blow up. It'll blow up on TikTok, and then I'll go, "Ooh, this is gonna be good. I can't wait to post this to Instagram." So I'll move it over to Instagram and post the same exact thing, and I'll get 10 views. I'm like, "What the? Yeah. What's going on?"
Do you hashtag optimize?
Yes.
You do that?
I hashtag like a mother. Like I have.
I don't even know what the logic is with that, and somebody who's listening might be able to correct it.
I studied that.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
so that
was another class I took through Jerry Corley because he was like, you need to do this. You need to do what Charlie Barron's does, and then before you know it, you're going to be selling out clubs and that sort of thing. And he said. And he has a social media class that I highly recommend.
Yeah,
I want to give Jerry some credit there. He's been very helpful with that. And what he suggests you do, same thing Brandon has suggested to us at the Comedy Zone, is pick like 3 of your favorites and focus on those.
3 of your favorite comedians?
3 of your favorite platforms. I'm sorry.
Oh, platforms.
Yes. What you can. The problem I was having is I was trying to do this on Twitter, this on Instagram, this on Facebook, this on TikTok, this on YouTube, and I was, it's too much.
Yeah, I have a rhythm of.
So he says,
3.
Go with, like he was recommending, YouTube. I think it was YouTube, Twitter. No, wait, YouTube. Maybe it was Instagram. And Brandon, and I agree with this, Brandon says, consider Facebook and Instagram one. Because usually what you post will get shared.
Yeah.
You can set it up that way.
You can, yeah.
And then TikTok. TikTok is a great platform if you want to grow an audience quickly.
Yeah.
But you have to be consistent. You have to do a lot more. Like, Brandon recommends, it's Brandon Rainwater I'm referring to.
Yep.
I guess you could say he's the house comedian here at
for
Comedy
sure.
Zone Greenville.
He's got the biggest following.
And he says, yes, and he travels, tours with Ginger Billy.
Yep.
And he says to TikTok every day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try that on Instagram, people will be like, dude.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that.
Interesting. Yeah. I got to remind myself of that. I think that's right. The fatigue of seeing too much content is not as bad on TikTok.
And even I've heard Corley
maybe
say,
I'm not posting enough on TikTok.
Do 3 on TikTok. Even if you do
a
3.
day?
I think he was talking about like referring to Charlie Barron's when he first started. I think he was doing what did he recommend? He was doing 3 a week.
Okay.
On TikTok.
Yeah.
Doing like a 3 or 4 minute video on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
1 of those a week
on
YouTube.
Yep.
Just 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now YouTube has shorts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the nice thing is I'll edit a clip that's 60 seconds or less, and I'll just put it on Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, and that's kind of it. And that's to keep the audience engaged to watch the episode if they forgot to click it, and then also build new followers if they stumble across it. I'd like to do more, but clips are time-consuming. Because you got to identify the moment in the interview that's worth capturing. You got to edit it down to the essence of what you're saying. And then I do the camera cuts and the captions. and that
takes time.
It does. It takes a couple hours. I usually do it late at night after a mic or something.
Mm-hmm.
I like video editing though, and we talked about this a little bit before we recorded too. Do you use Adobe Premiere for your stuff?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
That was another
Adobe
class
Premiere. I learned that in high school, and I still use it now. Now I have Adobe Premiere
That's
Pro.
Good that you did. I had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was editing stuff on like iMovie, but there's so much.
There's so much more functionality with Adobe Premiere.
Pro can do.
You can do a professional TV show with that. And I feel like the functionality I use it for, I've only scratched the surface to what the program can do.
Oh yeah.
I YouTube stuff all the time to figure out. Oh, maybe I could do this, and you get better and faster at editing. But yeah, nerding out.
That's one thing that has taken away from my open mic time.
Yeah.
Is instead of going to an open mic, there are too many times
don't sacrifice a mic for video editing.
But but what I'll do is sometimes I'll sacrifice stage time for
your family.
Well, yeah, that too. But for writing jokes for the newscast.
Sure.
Right? And so, one of the things, and that's a lot different than going up on stage. It is, but it's working that muscle. It's finding the funny in something that's helpful.
For sure. It's nice to have that as a accountability thing. Like, I'm going to put this out, so I got to make sure I write these jokes at this time.
Yeah, and having deadlines.
In a technical sense of writing the jokes. Because I don't always have, like, I'll out of my own laziness, I'll have like the germs of an idea and premises, and I'll just be like, F it, I'm going on stage with this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get really good stuff doing it that way, but if I was just a little less lazy, I could probably make it better, so that first rep is having a better chance of success, and not burning a premise. Because you can fall out of love with something real quick if you're not getting laughs.
If you're not getting it. Oh, I feel like there are plenty of premises that I've gone up with that are good, but I didn't prepare them like I should have.
Right.
And they didn't go very well, and I threw them away.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of them that I've revisited and actually turned them into something. But yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is we're talking about being magpies earlier. Take a little bit of this.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I do is everything that I've tried, I will not throw away.
Yeah.
I'll put
you
it
got
away,
you got an archive of all your jokes. Yeah, me too.
That was another thing that's been hard is making sure finding a system.
Yeah.
And not losing the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah, I have a pretty good note-taking system. Yeah, I use OneNote. You ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that for my customer notes, but I have a folder for comedy and you know. So, but it is kind of painful looking back at the old shit. Because I'll look back at stuff for the first year and I'm like, dude, this is so bad. I'm not revisiting that. But some stuff you can, some stuff you can revisit and, you're like, well,
find new.
I see what I was trying to do, but now maybe I could do it way different and have a better chance at working.
Or when we were first starting out, there are a lot of premises we might have tried and we've gone with a hack approach. Like this is what everyone does.
Yeah.
I like what John Reap told me once. He goes, "Never go with your first instinct." All right. If you find a premise and you have a joke and that's funny, see if you can dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
See if you can find, and that's the other thing.
Interesting.
Is going back to some of the stuff that, dating's a bitch, right? Everyone does that, right? But maybe there's a way you can turn it around and come with a different perspective. That kind of goes back to my news writing, because what they used to tell us in journalism class is, all right, if you're going to go cover a story, let's say that there's a school shooting, for lack of anything else. Everyone's covering the mechanics of what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe cover that story from the perspective of the cops who were the first on the scene.
Right.
Or cover that story from the perspective of the kid that survived the school shooting. Same thing with comedy.
Yeah.
You come up with a good premise.
Yeah.
Everyone else is talking about how it sucks to be on airlines.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about the premise as in, oh, I love going.
Well,
flying
Louis
on a
C.K.
plane.
did that brilliantly. It's one of his famous interviews where he talked about how people complain about sitting on the runway and, the delay, and they'll complain. They'll tell you the whole story. It'll be their whole day, and it'll be this thing. And then he'd be like, "You're a Greek myth right now. What happened after that? You fly through the air miraculously. You're sitting in a chair in the sky. Yeah,
it's a
miracle. It's a miracle. New York to L.A. 2 hours. That used to take 30 years, and half the people would die on the way there.
Exactly.
Now you're watching that.
What a great way of taking something that is common and making people think about it. And
I wonder about doing that, because that's not like, I actually now I love that bit still, but I think about, I'm an economics student. And I think about the world that way, and I'm like, I'm more in tune to what Louis was saying. It is miraculous. There's certain things about how the market works that are miraculous, like the fact that we have our phone. All data that's ever been recorded in human history in our pocket is a miracle, and people don't really appreciate that. Miracle of flight. So I think about that. That's how I see some things, when you study economics.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But most people don't. So maybe that's an area to like mine for material, I guess. But yeah, it's a perspective shift, like you said. It's looking at it from an angle most people don't.
So go back to those first bits that you wrote when we were months into this and going, oh man, that was so hack.
Yeah.
But you know what? What if I
flip the perspective?
What if I do this?
Yeah.
So, and that's one way of talking about things like race and stuff like that that I think you could make funny.
Right. But not to go into it, just clumsily and
Yeah, you have
to offend people,
you have to be careful.
To bull in a china shop kind of deal. But
yeah.
Man, it's 10 to 8. Are you going to Radio Room tonight?
Nope.
No?
Yeah, I recorded my other podcast before.
What's the other podcast? The Home Pros?
The Home Pros radio show.
Okay. Good show. What's the topic of today's show?
Let's see. We talked about how to paint cabinets.
Nice. So I know you don't judge aesthetics because you're not a homo inspector.
Yeah.
Well, how are mine?
See, I don't care about those countertops. It's okay if it's messy. I just care if they open and shut okay.
Yeah.
No, but
that one doesn't quite shut all the way.
But yeah. What else were we talking about? We're talking about cabinets. Interesting. We covered a couple of interesting houses that are on the market.
Okay.
The house that was the house from The Conjuring just sold.
Is that here in town?
No. It's up in Rhode Island.
Oh, okay. You cover all that stuff.
Yeah, so
the house from The Conjuring.
We have like a news desk at the end of the show where we cover like stories in the home industry.
Yeah. Do you do one episode a week?
Yeah.
How much work is it?
Judging by the fact that I do all the show prep and my co-host does none of it, it takes me probably about 4 hours, 5 hours to prep it every week.
Okay. Is it live?
And it's well, we'll record it and then it'll edit down and then we'll stream it.
And how long is each episode?
YouTube and Facebook Live. About an hour. This one that we did today is probably going to end up being about an hour 15, something like that.
Okay. But you're not limited by time. You just
no,
have
that's
kind of
one
rough
good thing that's nice. When we were on the radio, everything was time constraints. So it was like this segment had to be 10 minutes. This segment had to be 14.
And there's all these extra choices that have to be made to get it to that level.
Yeah.
And the choices are probably exhausting.
And the cool thing about having our own studio and having our own podcast is, I do try to limit each segment to about 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
But if we're on a roll about something, like we did a segment today that I was planning on spending about 3 minutes on how to get rid of carpenter bees in an environmentally friendly way,
right.
And that ended up getting so interesting. We probably talked for an extra 5 minutes on it.
Okay.
And so we had that freedom to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if it was bombing out and I was bored, then I'd go, I need to go to a commercial.
Yeah.
But
I got
we just had time to finish the thought and moved on. So.
Okay. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So people, Home Pros radio show.
Yep.
That's your main.
HomeProsRadio.com is a website. We're on all the social media. It's Home Pros at Home Pros Radio.
Okay.
Is the handle on Instagram.
So
Twitter, YouTube,
anybody
and all that.
interested in like or buying a home or
Buying
do
a
it yourself
home,
stuff, home inspection, anything related to like residential stuff, they'd be a
how to
potential
fix something,
viewer.
how to tell if something's not working properly.
I need to watch
whether
this show,
electrical, heating and air, all that stuff.
Yeah, I need to tune in.
So,
Okay.
but and then there's the other social media that I'm trying to grow now is at Tommy D Comedy. I did headshots. I printed out
You
business
did?
cards.
I gotta get headshots, man.
Yeah, go to a YouTube page. You can find at Tommy D Comedy. I've got
You got a YouTube
banner
channel?
and all that stuff. Yeah. So what I do every week with what I'm working on doing is filtering out with at Tommy D Comedy. Right now, there's a bunch of Home Pros Radio stuff on it. I'm filtering that out and putting in the newscasts.
Okay.
So I'll do like a 3 or 4 minute newscast every week.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do is I'll take that and split it up into short
TikToks.
1 minute shorts
Yep.
that I'll put on TikTok and Instagram
Reels.
for the good ones. Well, I don't know how to. It's ridiculous because I'll have
I know, dude.
and I
Social
haven't
media
quite
is such
figured
a
out.
pain in the
I
ass.
haven't quite figured out TikToks either because I'll literally put out, oh, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be like a joke that I like,
Yeah.
and I'll show you a couple after.
Yeah.
There's one I did about dog TV that I thought was absolutely hilarious, and it got like 300 views. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then I put one out that's just silly, stupid stuff like someone with their fart license plate. You know, I did one. It was a dog, a meth dog, a dog finding a bag of meth. And that one got 10,000 views. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how does this work?
Yeah.
You know, it was an episode. It was a short that I was like, I'll just throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
Boom, it blows up.
Yeah. I think
then-
the lesson there is just keep making stuff.
Yeah.
They'll like what they like. Who gives a
And-
shit? And don't expect it to be great or
Let
terrible.
it organically happen.
Make it good, but let go of whatever the outcome is.
That was my Achilles heel, and that's Brandon has said this. Brandon Rainwater said this to us.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Jerry Corley say it, to quote him again. I've heard other people that Foxworthy's interviewed. Like there are others. There's so many people that I've heard. There's one guy, I forget his name, out of Nashville, who started just like
Theo
Charlie
Vaughn?
Barron's did.
No.
Oh no. I can't remember his name, but a lot of these guys, I'm sure Brent Pella will say this too, is just put stuff out there.
Yeah.
And don't worry about whether or not it's good, because you'll figure out how to make it good.
Yeah.
Just put it out there and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not having fun with it, it's not going to be worth it.
Right.
But as long as you're having fun with it, it'll convey in what you're creating.
Yeah.
And people will like it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to do it. And
For
for
sure.
so many years, I've got a really close friend of mine right now that I think will be hilarious on stage. I'm trying to get him to do
Peer
stand-up.
pressure him. Yeah, I got some
And that's
friends
kind of
like
what
this.
I'm doing. And he's like, but what if I'm not funny? And I'm like, you're not going
You're
to be
not going to
funny.
be funny. You're going to suck,
But
dude.
you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you were that hilarious.
Yeah.
He was a big-time radio guy for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I always looked up to him. It's weird. The tables have totally turned. Because
Mm-hmm.
he used to be the morning radio guy here in town
Mm-hmm.
and in Charlotte. And I used to look up to him when I worked in radio like, oh, I wish I could be like him and this, that, and the other.
But now he's kind of intimidated and-
He's looking at me doing open mics and doing the news stuff and going, man, I wish I could be like him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
are you serious?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I always encourage anybody
You
who's
just
ever
gotta do
remotely
it.
thought about it to do it.
I thought,
Taking that leap of faith, and then you're just like, it's very healthy to
I know it's never,
throw caution to the wind.
and I know it's never healthy to look back and go, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
no.
But I have this one thing. Okay, so when I graduated, I was the mascot at the University of South Carolina. I was cocky. And then I won the national championship for mascots, which is kind of silly.
Hell yeah. You won?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
dude,
yeah.
awesome. I didn't know you won that.
So in 1995, I was the national champion. 94. And used that accolade to get the job at the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
So as a mascot for the Panthers.
Yeah.
And for 3 years I worked there. And then what the Panthers did is they decided at one point that they're going to fire all their contracted employees after 3 years of getting the team up and running.
Uh-huh.
So everyone from the mascot to the landscaper and anyone else that were experienced pros at what they did, they got rid of them so they can bring in cheaper people.
Okay.
Well, I still had a year left on my contract.
Uh-huh.
This was back in what? 1998,
okay,
something like that. Well, at the time, I was living in Charlotte, not far from Comedy Zone in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I had always said, and I had a whole year left on my contract. So if I wanted to, I could not have a job.
Yeah.
And I could just hit the open mics, work on.
So you would have gotten paid, but not having to do anything.
So
for the Panthers?
I was getting paid, but didn't have to work because I had a contract.
So that's a regret of yours.
So I had
you could have got up.
That I could have been doing open mics. I could have been, and some of the people that I admire or want to work with today, who are touring comedians,
started back then
in Charlotte at the time that I could have been doing open mics with them.
And how new were they at that point?
They were new to the business.
Like a year.
John
or two
Reap
in?
is one of them.
Yeah.
Kostaki Economopoulos is one of them.
Dude.
Pat Godwin is one of them.
Isn't that so funny? Like you think like for anybody who's like successful in comedy, like a touring comic, there was a point when they weren't that.
Yes, they were
like,
just like us
when
sitting here.
When that changes. I mean, I don't. That's the thing I have. I don't even dare to expect anything, per se. Like, I don't even like to think that direction because I don't want to get disappointed necessarily. But it's so weird. Like anybody you see on TV or whatever, like they've had those early periods where they've doubted the shit out of themselves and like. We're just figuring it out. And
I thought, what am I doing?
Yeah.
It's funny I like listening to those interviews where comedians will go, "Yeah, I was doing comedy for like a year or two, and then I just stopped for like a year or two, and then I got back into it."
Yeah, I don't get that.
And I'm like, wow. And they still became. I can't think of who specifically said that. I like to think of people like Rodney Dangerfield, though.
Yeah, he got big later in life.
He did comedy. And then had a whole other career.
Mm-hmm.
And then
what was his other career? I didn't know that.
I want to say he was in sales.
Oh, cool.
Uh-huh. Is that right? I don't know. I can't remember. He was in. I forget.
Okay.
So, but yeah. But Chuck Johnson, who's a promoter out of Charlotte, was a recent graduate of Appalachian State.
Okay.
Who was working at the Comedy Zone, Charlotte, just kind of working there as an employee, and now he's a booker.
Oh wow!
For this, he knows, like he has another podcast,
right?
That you got to check out. It's a good podcast.
Do they do
what he did over the pandemic? Was did a series of it's called The Check Drop is the name of the podcast.
Okay.
And since he wasn't able to book shows, he came up with a podcast called The Check Drop.
Okay.
And what he did is he took all the comedians that he worked with over the years and did an hour-long interview on, so what made you get into comedy?
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, but at the same time, it made me go, damn it, I could have been where they are today if I would have been just going to the open mic and wouldn't have been such a chicken back 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah. Well, no reason to beat yourself up too much over that, but that's a really good lesson. Like, for anybody listening, just do it.
Just go out there and give it a try.
Do it. I feel like it's a good lesson in life too, because like it might not be stand up, but everybody's got like something. I feel like they got a business they want to start, they got a side hustle they want to do, they got this little blog they want to do. They got just freaking do it, dude. Do it. I'll watch it.
Yeah,
maybe once. I might
give it a try. You never know what you can accomplish.
Fear of looking stupid, dude. I lived with that for way too long. I still live with it. But.
And as many times as we've talked about going up on stage and like, oh man,
dude,
I bombed, whatever. There have been just as many of those times that we've experienced
joy and
oh my god, that was great. I didn't know I could come up with that. I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, we talk about the negative ones because they're fun to talk about, but there's so many good experiences when jokes work and when things are going great and it's a fun time and but yeah.
But that's the thing is when you do fail, and I used to say this to my soccer players all the time when I was coaching soccer, is that's when we learn.
Yeah.
So it's okay if we lose a game, if we realize what we did wrong and fix it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have those moments.
Enjoy.
One of my favorite quotes is from one of our fellow comedians here in Greenville, Jeff Thompson.
You quote Jeff? Yeah. Wait, what's Jeff's quote?
Jeff got up on stage one night and he goes, "We're at the radio room," and he was not having a good set. And he goes,
"I'm about to go there right now."
He goes,
"It's gonna be horrible."
"You know what? I'm getting good at this. You know why I can tell? Because I'm bombing right now, and I don't really care." That's when you know that, hey, it's okay.
Yeah, you almost want to be indifferent to the outcome completely, or detached a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like it's. I think I've used this metaphor before. It's a biblical metaphor, which is strange. But when Peter walks out on the boat, and he's walking on water, and he's kind of doing it okay because he's looking up at Christ. But then as soon as he
realizes
like, holy shit, it's
what he's doing.
Yeah, then he drowns because he's like he's not free, or he's in a religious sense, like he doesn't have faith. So
that's what you have to have.
It's kind of like Indiana Jones too, when he steps.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah,
very good.
I don't know why he didn't just kind of
tiptoe out.
Somebody
there.
else. Yeah, I think somebody else made that joke. Just kind of feel it's there.
You don't have to make. Yeah, that's right. I would have been like, dee.
That might have been Rory Scovel doing that. But
who's going to be here next week?
Yeah, dude, I gotta go to that, but I'd sold out. Mm-hmm. I might try and volunteer DJ. Maybe we could you don't even have to pay me. I'll just sit back there.
That's right.
If somebody else is DJing, I don't know. But I'm dying to see Rory. But anyway, man, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm glad to finally do this.
Yeah, it's overdue, man. I think we tried months back and we couldn't make schedules work. So, and I feel like we didn't talk about your start in comedy a little bit, but I'd love to have you on again, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I could talk to you for forever about all the technical stuff of jokes and all that. But yeah, man, check Tommy out.
At Tommy D Comedy, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Please follow me on. You know what? I'm doing really well on TikTok, but I feel like I'm shadow banned on Twitter and Instagram. It's funny.
You need Elon to take over and take the reins off.
I have 12 Twitter followers, and I'm like, what the?
Really?
Yeah, and a couple of them are Reno Collier and Dr. Will Miller and some of these other people. I'm like, I feel embarrassed that they're following me because I don't know what it is.
Everybody's got one that lags. My Twitter's pretty. I mean, I have a couple hundred, but it's not Instagram is my favorite. But follow them on Twitter.
Yeah, and but yeah, that would be awesome. And feedback. What I like to do is get feedback from some of the videos I put out. I love hearing the comments.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about TikTok and stuff is when you put something like that out there, like the news, and reading the comments and responding to the comments. That's a lot of fun.
For sure. Yeah.
So
if they're nice.
Yeah.
If they're mean.
Hey, all feedback is good, right?
Kill yourself, bro.
Yeah, that's right.
Get a lot of those. No. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Catch Tommy in Greenville.
That's right.
All right. See you guys next time.
Yeah.